Welcome to today's Deep Dive. I'm your host, Justine, and we are broadcasting on the Scaling Legends podcast.
And I'm Nicole. Super excited to be here.
So we have a really, incredibly specific mission today for you. We are mapping out the exact state of the construction economy for Q2 of 2026.
Right.
And the whole objective here is to help you understand exactly where you need to position your business over this next quarter.
Because if you don't, your margins are going to get completely crushed.
Exactly. So we're pulling from this massive brand new intelligence report from ConstructConnect, and we're also looking at the sector-level platform data from Smart Business Automator.
Which is such a good combo for this kind of analysis.
It really is. But right out of the gate, there is this huge, jarring contradiction in the data. It's wild. Construction spending is actually up 5.2%.
Sounds great, right?
Yeah, it sounds amazing. But new construction starts are down 3.5%. So what does that mean? Well, it means the industry is just living off its backlog. The pipeline of new work is shrinking, even while the current work is still flowing.
Right. It's like this ultimate optical illusion for a business owner.
Totally.
You see spending up that 5.2%, you look at your accounts receivable, you see the cash coming in, and you just assume, oh, the market's healthy.
Yeah, you feel safe.
Exactly.
Right.
But spending is a lagging indicator. It basically just represents the invoices being paid today for projects that you fought for, won, and broke ground on 12 to 24 months ago.
Right.
Starts, on the other hand, so the project's actually breaking ground right now, today. That's your leading indicator. That tells you what your revenue is going to look like a year from now.
Right. We've talked about this before. If you aren't watching the starts data, you are basically driving by looking exclusively in your rearview mirror.
That's the perfect way to put it.
And honestly, with this report, a better analogy might actually be like soil subsidence, a sinkhole.
Oh, wow. Yeah. A sinkhole is accurate.
Yeah, because spending is just the surface level, right? Right now, it looks totally flat. It feels stable. You're happily building your business on it. But underneath, that bedrock, which is the pipeline of new project starts, it's actively washing away.
Yeah, so if you're just watching the spending data and completely ignoring the starts, you're building right on top of a sinkhole.
So we're essentially living on borrowed time here.
We really are. And to understand why that bedrock is eroding, why starts are down 3.5% across the board, we kind of have to zoom out.
Right. Look at the big picture.
Exactly. We have to look at the macro headwinds that are making developers and investors just incredibly hesitant to greenlight new projects right now.
And there are a lot of them.
So many. First, you have Moody's currently placing the odds of a macroeconomic recession at 50-50.
Or potentially even higher.
Right. And then you have elevated oil prices, which, directly squeeze the operating costs for all that heavy machinery and the material transportation.
Oh, absolutely.
And then most importantly, there's just this massive swirling uncertainty around global tariffs.
Yeah, the tariffs are a huge factor.
Because if a developer cannot accurately predict what steel or mechanical equipment is going to cost 2 years from now, what do?
They just pause the project.
Exactly. They pause it.
Which really brings up this brilliant point from Michael Gux. He's the chief economist over at ConstructConnect.
Oh, yeah. His insight in this report is spot on.
Yeah. He notes that surviving this specific environment requires sector-level intelligence because that old saying, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Right.
It's completely dead. The overall tide is actually rushing out right now.
It is. But the crucial nuance here, and this is what we really need to get into, is that the water isn't dropping everywhere equally.
Okay. What do you mean?
Well, the gap between the sectors that are winning right now and the sectors that are just actively losing, it is wider than anything we've seen in recent history.
Wow.
So a general contractor, they just cannot afford to be a quote-unquote general contractor anymore. You have to actively hunt for these little pockets of money that are somehow defying the macroeconomic gravity.
Yeah, you can't just wait for the work to come to you. You need tools to find it, which is why having a system like Smart Business Automator is so critical, right? Because it actually tracks both that spending and the starts data by sector.
Exactly. You need that granular visibility.
So let's follow the money then, because even with the total start rate being negative, there are these massive outlier pillars that are actively holding the entire industry up.
The winners.
The winners, exactly. Let's start with literally the most staggering number in this entire ConstructConnect report, manufacturing.
Oh, it's wild.
We are looking at a 13.4% growth in manufacturing starts.
Yeah, just think about that. In a market that is fundamentally shrinking overall, Manufacturing is exploding. It's the absolute standout.
Right. So what is fueling that? I mean, 13.4% is huge.
It's the defining bright spot of the decade, honestly. And it's being driven by this massive multi-layered wave of supply chain reshoring.
So companies bringing manufacturing back stateside.
Exactly. You have all that federal funding from the CHIPS Act, and it's finally hitting the dirt in a real way.
Right.
So we're seeing these unprecedented mega fabs breaking ground for the huge tech giants.
Yeah.
Like Intel, TSMC, Samsung, Micron.
The scale of those projects is just hard to comprehend.
It really is. And right alongside that, you have a nationwide surge in battery manufacturing plants to support the whole electric vehicle transition.
Okay, but let's pause for a second and just explain the reality of these projects to the listener, because, I mean, building a semiconductor megafab is not like just throwing up a tilt wall warehouse, right?
Not even close, no.
The barrier to entry for a contractor has to be incredibly steep.
It's basically a completely different universe of construction. I mean, a semiconductor fab, it requires absolute structural perfection.
Yeah.
We're talking about microscopic vibration mitigation, built deep into the concrete foundations.
Just so a truck driving by doesn't ruin the microchips.
Literally, yes.
Oh, wow.
So passing trucks don't disrupt the silicon etching process. You're dealing with massive, highly pressurized clean rooms, hyper-specialized HVAC systems.
And the concrete pours alone have to be a nightmare.
Oh, the logistical coordination for the pours is round the clock.
Right.
So yes, the revenue is absolutely there, but the technical execution requires absolute precision.
Wow. Okay. And to power all those new fabs and to power the battery plants, you obviously need an unbelievable amount of electricity.
Which brings us to the second winning sector.
Right. Connected by a direct line of causality, power generation.
Yeah, the pipeline here is just staggering. The demand for electrons right now is completely insatiable.
And that's not just from the factories, right? That's AI too.
Exactly. It's being heavily fueled by the sheer power requirements of artificial intelligence data centers, combined with that broader rollout of EV infrastructure we talked about.
Right.
And to meet that demand, the whole industry is shifting. The report actually highlights a $176 billion pipeline for nuclear SMRs.
Okay, wait, 176 billion for SMRs, so small modular reactors.
Yes, exactly.
Let's unpack the why here. Why is the industry suddenly pivoting to SMRs instead of just building traditional nuclear power plants?
Well, because traditional nuclear plants are these decade-long site-built monoliths.
Right, they take forever.
And they are notorious for running billions of dollars over budget just due to all the complexities of custom on-site construction.
That makes sense.
So SMRs completely flip that risk profile. They are modular. The critical components are actually manufactured in a controlled factory environment.
Oh, so you just ship them in.
Exactly. You ship them on standard logistics routes and then assemble them on site. They deploy way faster, and critically, you can deploy them directly adjacent to the industrial hubs that actually need the power.
That's brilliant.
It is. And you pair that nuclear pipeline with a $1.4 trillion wave of broader grid expansion.
Trillion with a T.
Trillion with a T-grid modernization, plus continued wind power expansion, which is booming, even with major players like Total Energies pulling out of certain offshore leases recently.
Wow, the momentum is still there.
You just have an absolute booming sector.
Okay, so we have manufacturing and power generation, and those are mostly driven by tech and industry.
Right.
But the third pillar holding up this market really has nothing to do with technology. It is purely biological.
Healthcare.
Healthcare. Starts in this sector are up 11.8%.
Yeah, healthcare is the ultimate recession-resistant sector because it's driven by demographics.
An aging population.
Exactly.
Yep.
It's not driven by consumer discretionary spending. So we're seeing massive, complex mega campuses anchoring this space right now.
Like what kind of scale?
I mean, you've got the $1 billion Grady expansion, the $1.5 billion CSL project.
Wow.
Yeah, the $900 million Turner facility. The money is flowing.
But again, if you're a listener looking to capture some of that 11.8% growth, you are going to run into massive friction.
Oh, absolute friction. Building a hospital is basically navigating a labyrinth of compliance.
It's got to be so heavily regulated.
You're dealing with AHCA regulations, strict infection control risk assessment standards, negative pressure rooms.
Medical gas piping.
Yes, intricate medical gas systems. Honestly, the administrative burden of just documenting and verifying every single spec is usually what keeps traditional commercial contractors from ever bidding on these jobs in the first place.
Right, which is a huge operational problem that we are actually going to solve for a little later in the show.
Yes, definitely.
But before we get there, we really have to mention infrastructure. We are seeing a record $209 billion in highway projects.
Huge numbers.
Plus an $889 million deployment from the Department of the Interior specifically for water infrastructure.
Yeah.
And this is all largely driven by the IIJA, the Federal Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act.
Yes, but, and this is a massive but, this sector comes with a ticking clock.
Oh, the deadline.
Right. The IIJA funding has a looming expiration date of September 30th.
So it's a bubble.
It's totally a frantic, compressed bubble right now. States and municipalities are desperately pushing to get their projects designed, bid, and started before that federal money just evaporates.
Wow. Okay, and finally, we need to talk about the true anchor of the commercial space right now, data centers.
Yeah, this is the statistic that completely recontextualizes the entire economy for me.
It's crazy.
Data centers are literally single-handedly propping up the fragile commercial market.
Right.
If you were to extract data centers from the equation, the entire non-residential building sector, what we call NRB, it would actually be declining by 3.8% right now.
Wait, really? The whole sector would be negative 3.8% without data centers.
Entirely negative. They're holding the whole thing up.
Wow. So if we go back to our bedrock analogy, manufacturing, power, healthcare, and data centers, those are the solid granite.
Yep.
But if the overall starts average is still down 3.5%, there must be massive sinkholes opening up elsewhere.
Oh, there are.
Let's look at the danger zones. What is actively collapsing right now?
Well, the heaviest drag on the economy is residential. It was down 9% in 2024.
9% is a huge hit.
It is. And while economic models do expect a recovery, no one is projecting a real sustained turnaround there until late 2026.
Right, because of the rates.
Exactly. The combination of high interest rates and just sheer affordability limits has completely sidelined the residential buyer.
But it's not just housing, is it? Private non-residential, and we have to explicitly carve out manufacturing and data centers from that category.
Right, exclude the winners.
Right. The rest of private non-residential has been declining for 4 straight months. We're talking specifically about traditional office spaces and retail.
Yeah, traditional office construction is still struggling massively. I mean, even with major corporations issuing strict return to office mandates, the overall square footage requirement for a modern workforce, it's just permanently shrunk.
People are hybrid now.
Exactly. And retail continues to be systemically suppressed by e-commerce. It just isn't bouncing back.
Okay, let me push back on that a bit, just on behalf of the listener.
Yeah.
Because if I'm a contractor who has spent, the last 10 years building suburban office parks and strip malls, my instinct isn't just to abandon my core expertise.
Sure, that makes sense.
Like, why can't I just pivot to adaptive reuse? Why can't I turn those empty offices into apartments or turn the dead retail shells into, local logistics hubs for e-commerce?
I hear that all the time, and it sounds perfect in theory.
Right.
But the actual physical geometry of those buildings will fight you every single step of the way, and it completely crushes your profit margins.
How so? Give me an example.
Okay, take office to residential conversions. A suburban office park built in, say, the 1980s, it has massive, super deep floor plates.
Right, lots of cubicle space in the middle.
Exactly. So if you try to carve that into individual apartments, the interior units get absolutely zero natural light.
Oh, which violates residential building code.
Bingo. You can't do it. On top of that, office buildings have centralized plumbing cores, like one set of bathrooms per floor.
Yep.
An apartment building requires distributed plumbing chases for dozens of individual kitchens and bathrooms spread out everywhere. The retrofitting costs to drill all that are just astronomical.
Wow, okay. But what about retail to logistics?
Same issue, honestly. Modern supply chain logistics require warehouses with 36-foot clear heights to accommodate those huge automated racking systems.
Right.
Plus, you need massive, heavy-duty truck courts for 18-wheelers. A defunct strip mall simply does not have the structural roof height or the zoning footprint to support that kind of industrial activity.
So you just can't make it work.
You end up having to demolish the structure entirely, and at that point, you aren't doing adaptive reuse anymore. You're just starting completely over.
Okay, so let's say I accept that adaptive reuse isn't the magic bullet. What if I just adopt a super defensive posture?
What do you mean?
Like, I hoard my cash, I hunker down, I just live off the backlog I currently have from that 5.2% spending increase, and I just wait it out until rates drop and retail bounces back. Why is that a bad strategy?
Because that is exactly how you guarantee a slow death by 1,000 cuts.
Really?
Yes, that backlog you're relying on is just a mirage, and it is evaporating every single day.
Because starts are down.
Exactly. By the time you realize your pipeline is truly empty, all of your competitors will have already pivoted to the winning sectors.
They'll have beaten you to it.
Right. They will have locked up the pre-qualifications, secured the relationships, and essentially taken all the market share. The pivot to these winning sectors is not optional. It is an urgent necessity right now.
Okay, so we pivot. We pivot to domestic manufacturing and power. But we really cannot tell the listener to chase those sectors without addressing the massive double-edged sword driving them. Tariffs. And look, regardless of how anyone views tariffs from a policy standpoint, we aren't taking sides here. We have to analyze them purely as an economic mechanism.
Absolutely.
And the ConstructConnect report makes it very clear. Tariffs are simultaneously the construction industry's biggest opportunity and its most terrifying risk.
Oh, completely.
Right, because on the opportunity side, tariffs on foreign goods are the exact mechanism that's forcing this massive reshoring wave.
Yeah, corporations are spending billions to build mega factories on domestic soil, specifically to shield their supply chains from tariff exposure.
Right.
So the policy is literally creating the construction jobs we're talking about.
It is. But that introduces a severe, what they call reversal risk.
Yep.
Because tariffs are policy, and policy can change overnight.
Right. If a sudden geopolitical shift causes tariff policies to be paused or reversed, think about what happened.
The numbers change.
Exactly. A multinational corporation that was planning to break ground on a $2 billion domestic facility might run the numbers and realize, oh, it's actually cheaper to keep manufacturing overseas again.
And the project just dies.
Those massive pipeline projects could stall or vanish entirely with literally zero warning.
That is terrifying for a contractor who's forecasting a multi-year project.
It is.
And even if the projects move forward, the tariff environment is just wreaking havoc on the supply chain side. I mean, we covered this a bit in our March deep dives, but the report shows material costs surging at a 12.6% annualized increase.
Yeah, the material spikes are brutal right now.
Steel specifically is up 20.9%. Copper is up an unbelievable 27.1%.
And remember, copper is the absolute lifeblood of both power generation and data centers.
Oh, wow, yeah.
The very sectors that are keeping the industry afloat are the exact sectors relying on the materials that are spiking the hardest in price.
It's like finding a treasure chest, but it costs a fortune just to buy the key to unlock it.
Exactly.
So practically speaking, how do you actually protect your business from that? How do you structure an agreement when you are bidding on a 2-year build, but copper might jump another 20% before you even get to buy the materials?
Well, the days of signing a fixed price contract and just crossing your fingers, those are totally over.
Right, you can't gamble like that.
Escalation clauses remain absolutely critical on every single bid you put out.
Yeah.
But they have to be structured intelligently.
Okay, what does an intelligent escalation clause look like?
You cannot just ask an owner for a blanket percentage increase. They won't go for it. You have to tie the specific material buyouts to recognized objective indices.
Like the producer price index.
Exactly. The PPI for copper wire or structural steel. You need to negotiate staggered buyouts or maybe create shared risk pools with the developer where costs above a certain threshold are split between you.
Yeah, because if you eat that whole cost.
If you end up holding the bag on a 27% material spike, it will literally bankrupt you.
Which brings us perfectly to the execution phase. Knowing all this economic data is basically useless if you don't have the operational strategy to apply it.
Right, you need a playbook.
We need a survival guide for Q2. How does a listener actually navigate this transition?
Step 1. It starts with an honest, potentially painful internal audit. You have to check your sector mix. Look at your projected revenue for the next 24 months. What exact percentage of that revenue is reliant on the losing sectors? So residential, traditional office, and retail.
And if that number is heavily skewed toward those losers, you move immediately to step 2, which is target the winners.
Exactly. Healthcare, manufacturing, power, infrastructure.
But the friction here is that you can't just wake up tomorrow and randomly bid on a hospital.
Don't know. You need to actively start the pre-qualification process for those bids right now.
Get your foot in the door.
Yes. And to do that effectively, you need step 3. You must aggressively watch the monthly starts data.
Right.
You cannot rely on national averages. You need to know the second a specific subsector in your specific region starts to heat up or cool down.
Which is exactly where smart business automator sector intelligence becomes so invaluable, because it pushes that granular monthly starts data directly to you so you can see where the money is actually moving locally in real time.
It gives you the actual target to hit.
Exactly. And step 4 is arguably the most critical for actual survival. Maintain your cash reserves.
Oh, this is huge.
The reality of the construction business is grim. 82% of business failures in this industry are due to cash flow issues, not a lack of profitability on paper.
Right. Let's explain the mechanics of why that happens.
Please do.
When material costs surge 20%, your cash burn rate accelerates dramatically.
Right, because you're buying up front.
You are fronting massive amounts of capital to secure steel or copper on day one, but the owner might be holding 10% retainage and only paying you on 90-day terms.
Wow, that's a huge gap.
So you can have millions of dollars in guaranteed profit sitting in your accounts receivable, but if you run out of the actual liquid cash required to just make payroll on Friday, your doors close.
It's game over.
Game over. A heavily scrutinized rolling 13-week cash flow forecast is absolute survival gear right now.
That's such a good point. And finally, step 5, lock in your backlog today. Because of that spending versus starts gap we discussed at the very top of the show, once the broader market wakes up and realizes those office and retail pipelines are empty, there's going to be a stampede.
Oh, absolute chaos.
Every single contractor is going to rush into healthcare and manufacturing. The competition is going to intensify aggressively. You have to secure your pre-qualifications and lock in that backlog now before future competition realizes the bedrock is gone.
But this brings us to the operational elephant in the room.
Right.
Pivoting to a highly regulated sector like healthcare or power generation, it means slamming into a literal wall of administrative complexity.
Exactly. We talked earlier about the friction of the AHCA regulations and the ICRA standards. Like, if you are a project manager who is used to building retail shells and you suddenly get handed a 400-page hospital spec book,
You are going to drown.
you're essentially being forced to learn a completely new language on the fly.
And that administrative bloat, right?
Yeah.
The fear of missing a critical compliance spec buried on, like page 312 of the contract.
Yes.
That is what paralyzes companies.
Yeah.
They just don't have the bandwidth to handle the paperwork without dropping the ball on the actual physical construction execution.
Which is why leveraging modern tools is no longer a luxury. It is literally the bridge that makes this entire pivot possible.
Absolutely.
And this is where Smart Business Automator fundamentally changes your operational capacity. Instead of having your project managers manually cross-referencing submittals against a mountain of unfamiliar medical specs, it uses AI to do the heavy lifting.
Precisely. It instantly runs spec checking against massive, complex project files.
It does all the reading for you.
Right. And it actively tracks schedule risks, it monitors budget variances in real time, and it even auto-generates your daily logs.
It just handles the administrative bloat.
Exactly. It absorbs the friction.
Yeah.
And that allows your project managers to handle the infinitely more complex load of entering a brand new market without failing.
They can focus on what they're good at.
Right. They can manage relationships, optimize the site logistics, ensure the quality, while the AI just ensures you remain perfectly in compliance.
It's the ultimate execution advantage. Knowing what to do is just the economic side. Having the systems to actually execute it, that's operations.
Yeah, you need both.
So let's bring it all together for you. Do not let that 5.2% spending increase lull you into a false sense of security.
It's the rearview mirror.
It is. The windshield is telling us that new starts are down and the bedrock is actively eroding. Your survival depends entirely on aligning your business with the pillars holding up the market: manufacturing, power, healthcare infrastructure, and data centers.
You have to follow the money into the technically demanding, highly regulated sectors, and then use the right technology to manage that risk.
So here's your challenge. Sit down this weekend and do the hard math on your sector mix. If more than 50% of your future revenue is tied to a losing sector, Monday is the day you start diversifying.
Start immediately.
Reach out, get pre-qualified, and start securing your position in the winning markets. And if you know another contractor who is heavily exposed to retail or office right now, please share this deep dive with them.
Seriously, it might legitimately save their business.
It really might.
Okay.
So like, share, comment, subscribe. It's time to stop looking in the rearview mirror.
Definitely.
But before we go, we want to leave you with one final, slightly provocative thought to mull over as you build out your Q2 strategy.
Oh, is this a good one?
So we've clearly established that data centers and mega manufacturing fabs are the current saviors of the construction economy, right?
Right.
But both of those sectors are incredibly, almost unbelievably power hungry.
Extremely.
So what happens when those massive facilities finally hit the physical limits of our $1.4 trillion power grid expansion?
Yeah, what if the grid can't handle it?
Right. Could today's winning sectors become tomorrow's biggest bottlenecks simply because we cannot generate enough electricity to actually turn them on?
Will we just find ourselves looking at a stalled pipeline all over again?
It is something to ponder as you navigate the road ahead. Thanks for joining us, and we'll catch you on the next deep dive.